Salute is a program for and about men and women who have served our country. Our program includes news about the laws that affect veterans, information on benefits and services, and news from veterans organizations. And now, our host, Bob Peters.
Hello and welcome to Salute. My guest today is Mr. Pete Fournier. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
And you are an Army veteran.
Yes.
Very interesting. We're going to get into all of that. And you're also a very talented man. You've written a few books that we'll talk about a little later, and pens, and you're into some other businesses. But first, tell us a little bit about where you're from.
Well, I was born in Worcester, Massachusetts, but when I was 2 years old, my family moved to New Jersey. So I grew up in North Jersey, went to high school there, and then went off to college for a couple of years, and that didn't work out, so I went in the military. I had a very interesting 6 years in the military.
Yeah.
Got out of the service at Fort Meade, Maryland, went to the University of Maryland on the GI Bill, graduated there, and stayed for 35 years in Maryland. And then in 1999, moved to Florida.
Okay, well, let's go back to the Army. You enlisted, right? Because
I enlisted, yes.
And tell us about your enlistment. How long was that?
Well, I enlisted in the Army Security Agency, which was the only 4-year enlistment in the U.S. Army at the time. Because of the training, we were the electronic and communications intelligence arm within the Army, the electronic spies, as it were. And any intelligence that we gathered would ultimately go to the National Security Agency at Fort Meade. So I went in. When I went in, I enlisted to to go to language school and learn Polish.
Polish?
Yes.
Oh.
But while I was on leave after basic training, I was told, not unusually, that the needs of the Army had changed and that I was going to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, to become a communications traffic analyst. In other words, you have Morse intercept operators. They collect enemy intelligence, electronic intelligence, and then we analyze that communications traffic to determine unit strengths, unit weaponry, even sometimes get the names of the officers in enemy units. So I left there and went to Clark Air Base in the Philippines, when we had a joint interception site there at the Air Force Security Service at Clark. And while I was at Clark, the Army sent out a worldwide request for individuals who want to come back to the States to study the Vietnamese language. And so I felt everybody else in the unit was going to Vietnam from Clark. If I could get back to the States for a year, the war would be over, or the little skirmish would be over, yeah. So I came back and spent a year in language school, intensive, total immersion language training, and from there was sent to Vietnam. The day I arrived in Vietnam, I was checking in. A sergeant saw my name and he said, "Fournier, are you French?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Boy, am I glad to see you." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "We're real short on analysts on the Cambodian problem. French linguists translating Cambodian military communications intercepted." So here the Army had just invested hundreds and thousands of dollars make me a Vietnamese linguist, and they put me to work as a French linguist. I did that for about 6 months, and then got back to using my Vietnamese as a translator, interrogator, interpreter.
Yeah, tell the folks watching about your intense training. It was an awful lot of training, and you kind of got locked up where you have to only speak the one, right?
Yeah, a portion of the base had been set aside in what they called the Vietnamese village. And when you went through the gate, it was about a half an acre, I guess. Went through the gate, there was a PX, barracks, mess hall, and everything was conducted in Vietnamese. English was absolutely forbidden. If you were caught speaking English, and once I hit my finger in the door and started swearing in English, I was taken aside, told I was forbidden, and a Vietnamese individual taught me how to swear in Vietnamese. Another time I was caught singing in the shower in English, and the next day I had a lot of extra duty. And then a third time they told me I was talking in my sleep English, strictly forbidden. I painted rocks the next day, along with other guys.
Yeah.
But so it was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week when you were in the Vietnamese village. Oh, the classrooms were in there too. But so it was amazing.
Yeah.
When I arrived in Vietnam, I had a larger working vocabulary than the average native Vietnamese because of all the military terms that we knew.
Yeah, because they have different dialects too.
Yeah, there's the
northern
dialect and southern dialect, and we were trained in the northern dialect, which would be akin to Mandarin Chinese versus Cantonese. Every day in class, we read the North Vietnamese newspaper called Nhân Dân. Came out of Hanoi. Air France had 2 flights a day between Paris and Hanoi during the entire war.
Really?
The flights never ended. So when the flight from Paris would arrive, they'd pick up newspapers to bring back to Paris because there's a very large Vietnamese community, in France from the Indo-Chinese wars when the French were there. So somebody then would pick up these newspapers, an American probably from the embassy, put them on a plane coming west, and we'd end up with the newspaper was 1 day old. So we'd read all the news from North Vietnam about how the valiant North Vietnamese forces shot down 100 U.S. planes and destroyed 1,000 tanks and killed 20,000 GIs yesterday.
Yeah, unfortunately they couldn't confirm it, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting to read the propaganda day in and day out that was being fed to the North Vietnamese.
How long were you over there?
I was there 2 years. I did 2 one-year tours.
So you came back in between?
I came back for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Between tours. But I'm probably one of the few veterans who, although I became anti-war very quickly, I made so many friends and there were so many genuine patriots among the Vietnamese people that I kind of felt a kinship, and I wanted to go back for a second year, and I was working mostly then as a translator, interpreter for U.S. forces, officers, and whatever, doing interrogations also.
So you worked your way all the way up to captain.
Well, what happened is I was, for lack of a better word, drinking heavily one night, and we were bad-mouthing the officer corps, me and some other enlisted guys, and one of them said to me, I'll bet you'd make a good officer. I said, "You kidding me?" I said, I tell you what, I'll make you a bet, $100 that I can get a direct commission. Guy bet me. So just on a lark the next day, I went over, I filled out all the paperwork, got the old man to sign, sign at the bottom line. And the paperwork got shipped off, and it went to Camp Sama, Japan, to Arlington Hall, Virginia, where ASA was headquartered. Back to Sama. 2 weeks. It was the fastest speeding 1049, a request for personal action, I think, in military history. So the old man calls me in. He said, "Congratulations, Fournier. You're now a second lieutenant." I said, "What? Are you kidding me?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, I mean, what are you going to have me do?" He said, "Well, you're my new laundry and morale officer." I said, "What the heck's that?" He said, "Well,
laundry?
Yeah, he says, "You're in charge of the laundry and morale." Thanks. Excuse me.
That's quite all right. And you made $100.
Yeah, I made $100.
That's
yeah.
cool, yeah.
Exactly.
Listen, you told me, I met you over at the Korean Veterans 169 chapter meeting. And you told me a story about one day you were wandering around and you got captured, which I thought was pretty interesting. Do you mind telling that?
No, well, I had a friend who was a shopkeeper in Saigon, dress shop. He was a Pakistani, and he and I used to pal around. And one day he said to me, "Hey, would you like to go down to Vung Tau," which was a resort area down in the Delta area? I said, "Sure," and we were going to drive down in his car. So I was running late that morning, and he was going to pick me up. And I didn't realize the time, but I left my wallet and on my bed on the rack. So I ran to meet him. So we were going down, I believe it was Route 2, which was a major route, and we ran into a Viet Cong roadblock, and I got captured, and so did Lal Shan, the Pakistani. So I started yelling, "I'm not an American, I'm not an American, I'm a Canadian." So they dragged me into the bush, put me in a small bamboo cage, and Lal Shan in another cage, and they proceeded to rifle butt us, kick, beat. I was in and out of consciousness. And then the major, the Viet Cong major who was there, he heard my pleadings that, don't, I'm a Canadian. I'm with the United Nations. I'm with the United Nations. Don't do that. And my buddy, he's a Pakistani. He's with the United Nations too. So they dragged me out in front of this major, and he said to me in English, "So you say you're a Canadian, huh?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I spent some time at McGill University, and so you should know the Canadian national anthem in French." And so, "Start singing, soldier." So I started, I was in civilian clothes, actually. So they didn't even know, they were just assuming I was a soldier. Well, my mother was French Canadian, or was my father, and she used to teach us songs when we were kids at home, one of them being the Canadian national anthem in French. So I did a quick recall, and I started mumbling the words, and I only had to do like 2 lines, and he said, "All right, you win, or you made your point."
Yeah.
And he told his men to drag me out and dump me back on the highway, which they did. And shortly thereafter, a U.S. patrol came through, picked me up, and they said, "What happened to you?" "Oh, the area we were in was an off-limits area at the time."
Shame on you.
Yeah, so I told them I had been run over by a car, that we had a flat tire. Oh, they shot up Lal Shan's car, too. So I had 2 broken arms. I had massive internal injuries. I had a cracked fibula. I had a concussion. I was in the hospital for a good 6 weeks.
Wow. And your friend?
He survived too. figured if I was from, the UN,
Yeah,
he was from the UN. At the time, there was this International Control Commission that was an arm of the UN trying to broker some peace there. And there was a Canadian representative, a Pakistani representative, and a Polish representative. And those three were representing the UN. So it made sense, too, that I would be a Canadian on the International Control Commission, the ICC. So everything seemed to fit with my story. So that's how I got away with it before the survival rate among prisoners of the Viet Cong was 0 because they were mobile and they couldn't take prisoners with them.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness.
Yeah, I know. So I think I'm here for another reason. I haven't figured it out yet, but like you told me, you were scheduled to be on a plane that went down with loss of life, and for some reason you didn't get on the plane. There's some force there that is guiding our lives.
Yeah, especially a lot of people that were in the service. I mean, I talked to a lot of men and women who served the service, and there was always like, they were fortunate that something happened or this and that,
Yeah.
But anyway, you came down. You told me, and I asked you if you'd talk a little bit about it with Agent Orange. And a lot of people don't know about Agent Orange, and what they do know is it was from a defoliant that they sprayed, and that's all they know. I mean,
yeah, the defoliant got into the water, it got into the soil. It got directly on GIs. These planes that come over dropped these canisters of Agent Orange to defoliate the canopy, because the enemy would use the canopy, to hide, so that the bombers could see, where they were bombing. And we were told absolutely positively that this stuff was non-toxic. And I had seen GIs, rubbing it all over themselves. Look at this, look at this stuff and whatever. And although I was never rained on, I spent a lot of time as a pay officer. So I was traveling all over the country. I was many times eating on the economy, at restaurants that were they buy local produce that had been whatever. So about 4, maybe 5 years ago, I really didn't feel good. So I went to the VA up in Gainesville there, and they were interviewing me and asked me, were you in Vietnam and when and where? Told me, I said, well, let's run you through the Agent Orange program and see. So took a lot of blood tests and found that I had advanced diabetes. And the diabetes is on the list of 16 illnesses that are directly tied to Agent Orange. So I got a 20% disability there. Then about a year later, I was really feeling bad and my armpit seemed swollen. So I went back and shortly thereafter was diagnosed with lymphoma, stage 3 lymphoma. So immediately put on chemo for that. But so that I was able to qualify for 100% disability. I'm now in remission, but the oncologist has said it will come back 100%. It's just a matter of when. So that Agent Orange is pretty mean stuff. Anybody out there who served in Vietnam should contact their American Legion ombudsman. Ombudsman? Yeah, and they can help get that stuff.
I'm sorry. But I had a couple of gentlemen on from the VA, and they have a whole list of places. And there's not just Vietnam. there was other countries where it was,
Oh, I was not aware of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was stationed in Thailand, Utapao, Thailand, and they asked me if I'd been checked because it is now on the list. There's a growing list. So if people are wondering, they can always call the VA and say, I heard a little bit about Agent Orange. Where was it used? And I was at such and such a place. Is that considered?
A lot of sailors qualify, ships that, came in the inland waterways. And I believe 1 day in country is sufficient time for you to get checked out, for them to check you out. So I strongly encourage any veterans who suspect they had any contact with Agent Orange to follow through on that. It was mean stuff. It really was.
Well, I thank you for sharing that with us and talking to our viewers. After you did your career, because we're starting to run out of time, and you're a very talented man.
Thank you.
You went to work for
Lockheed Martin.
Lockheed Martin for quite a while, and in your spare time, somehow, you managed to write some books. Well, and I'd like you to show the books and tell people what they are, and if they want to get one, where can they do it?
Actually, in 1965, I got in an argument with a guy over a nickname of a college team. And I said, I'm going to write a book so we don't have arguments like that. So in 1965, I started collecting the nicknames and mascots, and it kind of got out of hand, where now I wrote a book, 2,500 senior, junior community colleges, United States and Canada, all in the handbook of mascots and nicknames. It's, if you know the college or junior college or community college, you can look up their nickname. If somebody throws a nickname at you, you can look up which schools have that. So it's all cross-referenced. And also I have Did You Know pages, which are narrations of what's the origin of the Virginia Tech Hokie, where does that come from? What is a Hoya? Why Youngstown State, known as the Penguins? And
yeah, I don't think there's too many penguins there.
Yeah, so forth. So I have some of those histories in here. The book can be purchased either at Amazon.com, where I don't get any commission, or directly from me at my calling my home, 787-6462, and ask for Pete, the Handbook of Mascots and Nicknames.
Pete, you should mention that it's 352 area code.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We are on the internet,
352-787-6462.
Okay.
And then my time in Vietnam, I had so many unusual and interesting things happen to me. I would tell friends, neighbors, relatives, say you ought to write a book. So 5 years ago, I wrote a book about all my adventures in Vietnam, kamikaze peacocks and oink, coming of age in an unfunny war. There is some humor in this book. As far as I know, it's the only Vietnam humor anywhere, but it's all done in context so that it's respectful humor. Again, this book is available at Amazon.com or by calling me directly, Pete, at area code 352-787-6462. I'd gladly supply you with one of the books.
Yeah, I bought one from you and I started reading it. I found it very interesting. Of course,
thank you.
You started out with going through your physical. I related to that. We talked a little bit about that before, but it's.
That's always.
I'm interested in reading the rest of it. It looks good.
Yeah, the physical is always one's first encounter with the system.
Yeah. What am I doing here?
Yeah. And then, of course, basic training is is an adventure like nothing else. And here I was, a suburban boy from New Jersey. The largest weapon I had ever used was a slingshot. And I went to Army basic training, and they've been teaching marksmanship for 200 years. And
not with a slingshot, though.
no, but marksmanship with real weapons.
Yeah.
And we had boys from Kentucky, Tennessee, born with guns in their whatever.
Yeah.
And I was the company marksman, and it really angered a lot of these good old boys, because I just followed the rules, what I was taught by the Army, and I became the unit marksman. So that, I was very unpopular for a while.
Listen, we're starting to run low on time.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I just want to mention to people about these pens that you make, that you go around to different gun shows and you sell these pens. And tell us a little bit about the pens.
I'm making pens that I use as a basis a 30 caliber shell or a Maxim center fill shell, and also a 50 caliber shell. The shell is plated with either chrome or gunmetal or 24 karat. And then I use an exotic wood or a acrylic that looks like camouflage, and I make the pen. I'll put it all together, and the action is a bolt action to retract the point and extend the point. It's a very unusual
And they're
pen.
beautiful. They're beautiful.
They are beautiful.
Do you have if somebody wanted to look at that? Do you on the web?
No, I don't have on the website.
Well, shame on you.
I'm 3 weeks into the business,
Oh, okay.
so I'm still getting my feet on the ground, on running the business. But the demand has really been nice, very rewarding. I really enjoy it. Every pen is handmade by me in my workshop.
And they're beautiful. But we're running out of time. But you did tell me something about that you do a service that I want you to quickly talk about.
I volunteer with the Senior Medicare Patrol. We go around, speak to seniors to educate them on how they can protect themselves from Medicare fraud and abuse. A lot of people out there who want your Medicare number, they want to sell you something and finance it for you and tell you that Medicare covers it. I have a 15, 20-minute presentation that I do. We work ultimately for the Centers for Medicare Services, the Medicare agency in Baltimore. And would love to speak to groups of seniors, church groups, veterans groups, just senior citizens in developments. Contact me and I can put together a program.
Once again, quick phone number?
Pete, 352-787-6462.
And I hate to do this, Pete, but I'm out of time, my friend.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, we're out of time.
Bob.
And
Really
I
have.
appreciate all you do and what you've done for the country. And
Thank you.
pleasure meeting you.
Thank you
Well,
very much.
to all our veterans out there, our active military and their families, we salute you for all you do. Till next time, give us a call. We are now entering our third year salute here at Lakefront TV. We've had many great guests and veterans organizations share their stories with us. We'd like to hear from you too. If you're a veteran or a veterans organization, Lake Sumter counties, please give us a call. Lakefront TV can be seen all over Lake County and the villages and worldwide at lakefronttv.com.